In late 2008, I was still a gamer in training. Coming down from the high that was Halo 3, I began to dabble in another FPS series that my friend had introduced me to. You might have heard of it, it's a little series known as Call of Duty. Now, I can't say I remember my origins with COD all that well, but I do remember going over to a buddy's house and watching him play World at War multiplayer. I know I tried a few matches myself, got hooked, and subsequently acquired my own copy not too long after. Once I had my own game, I went to work on the campaign since I didn't have Xbox Live at the time, and I really enjoyed it. Being only 9 years old meant it took me some time to get through the game, but I chipped away at it gleefully, battling through the jungles of Japan alongside Roebuck, and ravaging a path to Berlin with Reznov was an exhilarating experience. One that I will certainly cover in a video someday. What's important for today is the relief and satisfaction I felt at the end. When I finally planted the Soviet flag atop the Reichstag with Reznov by my side as the music swelled and the credits began to roll, it was a thing of beauty. And as I set my controller down and leaned back in my chair, I wondered what I was gonna play next. That is, until something wildly unexpected happened. If you were around back then, I'm sure you were also shocked by what was happening. Suddenly finding yourself in a foggy, desolate building while an evil laugh surrounded you right after your moment of triumph. It was a punch in the gut, the likes of which I've never felt in a game since. And man, it terrified me to my core. I played for a little bit, my curiosity outweighing my fear, but it didn't take long for me to crumble and lose. This began a period of time where I could not play zombies by myself. When my friends would come over, I could play it just fine. When I was alone though, I'd quit after like round 2 out of pure fright. Eventually I got over my fear as I played more and soon found myself eager to try and beat my highest round. I will even admit to doing the old grenade glitch on the second floor that made it impossible for zombies to reach you. Got to round 47 that way, then quit when I got bored. The best part of all this, though, was how it brought my friends and I together in the same way. We'd all get together and try to survive as long as possible in co-op, do challenge runs, and even have a sort of competition to see who could go the longest solo. Thankfully, my friends had Xbox Live, so when new maps were released, I could go over to their houses and experience them day one. This led to countless hours of fun and discussion about the mode. We'd theorize about how the zombies were created, where the ray gun came from, and who our characters were. We'd laugh at the ridiculous things they'd say and quote them to each other at school or whenever we hung out. We'd scream with excitement when we caught the ray gun and beg to be revived when we go down. It was truly a special time. And it all stemmed from a little side mode that was just supposed to be a reward for beating the campaign. You didn't even have to do it on veteran. Of course, due to the mode's popularity, it was quickly added onto with new maps, and each one brought new and revolutionary things to the table. Things like perks, the power switch, a cast of likable characters, hellhounds, the pack-a-punch, and so much more. This made each map feel distinct from each other, and gave a vibe of progression from map to map as they each expanded upon one another. It's something I've almost never seen in gaming. To see a mode go from something as bare bones as Nacht to something as massive as Der Riese in less than a year is simply astounding. Which is why, to begin this series on Call of Duty Zombies, I'm going back to the start. I'm going to talk about each map in World at War's lineup, the unique traits that help them stand out, and how they built upon one another to create a solid foundation for the future. I hope you're comfortable, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be a long one. Without further ado, I give to you my Call of Duty World at War Zombies Retrospective. You drove them deep into the heart of the Reich. You thought they were dead. You were wrong. This is the description for Nacht der Untoten, the first zombies map ever created. It's ominous and mysterious, perfect for setting the tone of what you're about to play when you boot up the map. In addition, there's a cutscene that plays as it loads, and for a long time, Nacht was the only map to have this kind of introduction. Just like the description, it prepares you for what you're about to play as your character wakes up from a plane crash. His vision fades in and out as shambling figures slowly emerge from the distant fog. One of the figures is noticeably faster and quickly separates from the group before running into the camera. In blood-red text, the words "Nazi zombies" come into focus, and the game finally begins. The laugh that is heard at the beginning of the match has always unnerved me a lot, simply because there is no reason for it to be here, nor is there a clear source. It's unknown who is making this sound, and it only appears on Nacht. Maybe it's just a little flourish to ramp up the spookiness of the map, but I always thought it was something much more. However, even without the nefarious cackle, Nacht der Untoten is scary. Outside of the building, everything is bathed in an otherworldly glow from the moon, and a thick fog surrounds the entire structure, obscuring your view of whatever is making those god-awful sounds. Inside isn't much better though. The dimly lit, blown-out concrete structure you're forced to hold out in is hardly welcome, but given the circumstances, it's better than nothing. The building itself is reused geometry from the other parts of the game, and isn't very large. It consists of 4 main rooms: the spawn room, the box room, and two rooms upstairs. These areas are divided by 3 different buyable doors, 2 of which are accessed from spawn. But if you buy the couch on the stairs, you're an awful person and should feel bad. Just kidding. Maybe. Anyway, the more popular and objectively better option is to buy the help door, which leads into the box room. All of these areas have boarded up windows that the zombies will tear down to get inside, aside from the box room, which has a large wall they'll break down too. If it wasn't obvious from the gameplay and my description of the map, I'll just outright say that Nacht is tiny. This makes sense given that it's the first zombies map ever created, but I see its size more as a strength than a weakness. A smaller map means there's less room to maneuver, which makes it inherently more difficult. The lack of any future necessities like perks and pack-a-punch also adds to the level of challenge. Outside of its status as the first to ever exist, I think this is why the map has stood out for so long. It's a pure test of skill unlike any other zombies map. Because on Nacht, it's just you, your weapons, and your skills. Skills that all revolve around a very simple system of points. How you earn them and how you spend them. Earning points is easy. Just kill zombies and repair barricades. The true nuance comes in how and where you choose to spend your hard-earned credits. In Nacht, there's really only 2 types of things to buy: doors and guns. Doors will open up more of the map, thus giving you more room to breathe, but it will also give the zombies more ways into the building, meaning that you'll have more windows to worry about in exchange for the extra space. However, opening up the doors also opens you up to new and often more powerful weapons. For example, in the starting room, you've got the Kar 98K and the M1A1 carbine for 200 and 600 points, respectively. Both are better than your base 1911, but neither are good long-term. So, when you open the help room, because you're definitely not opening the stairs, you're greeted with the Thompson and double-barrel shotgun, both of which are decent options for power, but again, will only get you so far. However, there is one thing on the map that can make your survival much easier, and I'd say it's the most iconic thing to ever come out of zombies. The Mystery Box, a box of unknown origin that acts as a sort of slot machine. For the low price of 950 points, you get to spin the wheel of weapons and see what you get. If you're lucky, you'll get something powerful that you can't get off of the wall, like an LMG. If you're unlucky, you'll get something like the Springfield or Molotovs. But that's not all this box can give you. You may have noticed as you've spinned the box that there is a strange looking pistol appearing in there. It's totally unlike anything you've seen in the game before, and you can't help but wonder what it is, until you finally get lucky enough to land on it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the ray gun. It is the most powerful weapon in Nacht, and the first of what would become known as wonder weapons. It also just so happens to be my favorite of the so-called wonder weapons, because I'll never forget how awestruck I was when I first pulled it from the box all those years ago. Seeing its slick 1940s sci-fi design, hearing the sound it made when fired, and watching that green beam fly out and decimate the first zombie it hit is something I'll never forget. It was just so unexpected for something like this to be in a World War II shooter at the time, and it complemented the arcadey vibe of zombies extremely well. I fell in love with it right away, and I know I'm not alone, since this weapon has returned in every single Treyarch Zombies mode since. It's as much a part of Zombies as the Mystery Box, Perks, or the Pack-a-Punch. So not having it would just feel wrong. But even with a weapon as powerful as the ray gun, there's only one way to end a game of zombies, and that is to succumb to the overwhelming odds. Or, quit the game before you die, but you're a nerd if you do that. Either way, there isn't a traditional victory state in zombies. In fact, there really wouldn't be one until Black Ops 2 with Mob of the Dead. Even then, though, you had to go out of your way to complete an entire quest to get there. It wasn't until Black Ops Cold War with the exfil system that you were able to quote-unquote win a game of zombies by leaving before you were overrun. For World at War, though, there is no way out except death. And that could certainly be disappointing to some people. After all, you just spent a good chunk of time getting powerful weapons and reaching a high round only to die in the end anyway with no reward. Except that's simply not the case. More likely is the scenario where you jump right back in to see if you can survive longer than before. Maybe you'll try and beat your record, or your buddy's record, or do a challenge run like starting room only or one box only, whatever suits your fancy. Because even with its end state being death, Zombies has always been flexible enough to accommodate any playstyle you'd want to try. This turned the dark, hopeless rooms of Nacht der Untoten into a battleground where people would try so hard to one-up themselves or their friends, and it was glorious. This level of friendly competition is rarely seen in a video game, but especially so for a secret side mode you had to unlock. It really brought people together too, since split-screen gaming was still big back then. Having a couple of friends over to play zombies together was simply electric, and I think this is why the mode was able to take off like it did. But that's all there really is to say about Nacht der Untoten. For a first map, it really was something, and it laid the foundation for future maps to build off of with its simple yet deep, addictive gameplay. Its atmosphere was top-notch, and the fun you could have on it was quite literally endless. At the same time, though, it was very bare bones with plenty of room to grow. Not exactly a downside, but you could certainly do more with zombies as a game mode. And Treyarch must have known this too, because when they saw just how popular their little side mode had become, they went absolutely Zombie Verruckt, or as its friends call it, Verruckt, is the first DLC map to be added to World at War's Zombies, and is my personal favorite from the game. There are a handful of reasons why this is the case, but the biggest of them all is the horror. Insane asylums are my favorite setting for any sort of horror story, so to have a zombies map set inside one is just perfect. More than that, though, is the touches of terror placed throughout the map. Blood covers the walls, mannequins have dozens of blades stabbed into them, and the voices of patients long since past echo through the empty halls alongside the groans of the zombies. The cherry on top of this freaky cake are the small Easter eggs you have to manually activate in the spawn rooms. They're totally spine-chilling, and I love it. Again, Verruckt is made up of reused geometry from elsewhere in the game, but it's changed up enough for it to be its own thing. The corridors are a bit more cramped than the rooms of Nacht, but since the map is much larger, there's plenty more room to run, though you may struggle to get around the hordes as they fill up the narrow halls. This means that camping is still the best strategy, but if you think you can open up the whole map this time around, you are sorely mistaken. You see this door? Think of this door the same way you think of the stairs from the first map. Do not open it unless it is an emergency. You understand me? Good. Now, back to the video. The first thing about Verruckt you'll notice upon starting it is a door that says you must restore power to open it. Alongside that, there's some creepy text scrawled on the wall telling you essentially the same thing. If you're playing solo or with one other friend, this means nothing. But if you're playing with 3 or more, then it becomes a bigger deal. Because without the power, you'll have to buy the entire map to reconnect with the rest of your team. This is far and away the most unique thing about Verruckt, and I wish Treyarch would return to this concept at some point. The idea of needing to progress through a map, not just to gain power, but to literally regroup is such a good one. Though I can understand why they've strayed away from it. Simply because if one or both players on one side go down, then there's nothing the other two can do. And that can be a bit unfair, especially if it's your first time playing the map, but I still think the idea has some potential if it was workshopped a bit. Alongside the split starts, another thing most players will notice are the strange vending machines in each starting room. They also require power, which further reinforces the idea that turning on the power is an essential task. The power switch is one of the defining things Verruckt introduced to zombies. Though simple, its implementation gives players a secondary task other than survival. It gives them a goal to reach and a reason to explore the map, though the power room isn't too difficult to find. Its bright blue lights shine through the orange haze of the map and are visible from both spawn rooms via the courtyard. One thing to note is that the Juggernog spawn has significantly less doors to open in order to reach the power, so it's advantageous to have that team get there first. However, it's still important for the other team to open up some of their own doors, since Speed Cola is on their side of the map. This is where the next biggest thing Verruckt introduces comes into play.
Screw you, maggot face!
Perks were an idea implemented in the multiplayer of both COD 4 and World at War. So, when it came time for the team at Treyarch to expand their new popular mode, it only makes sense that perks would be introduced somehow. And the way they were brought in was pure genius. These 1940s inspired vending machines are visually striking against the backdrop of a dilapidated asylum, but Treyarch went a step further and gave them jingles that would play on occasion. The choice of perks was also excellent, and each one provides a boost that significantly helps with survival. Well, mostly. Before we get into that, let's talk about each perk and what they do. Juggernog is up first, and it simply gives the player more health. The amount it gives varies from game to game, but generally it doubles. This makes Jug the most desirable perk on any map it's featured in, and for good reason. Alongside it is Speed Cola, which allows the player to reload faster. Now, obviously, this is important because it reduces the time spent reloading, though it still plays second fiddle to Juggernog since health is more important overall. But when your health hits 0 and you drop to the ground, you need a little revive. This is where Quick Revive comes in. I don't think this one needs any explanation, but it is worth noting that this perk is entirely useless in solo, since you don't have any teammates to revive. This would be remedied in the next game, but we're not there yet. So, to close out World at War's perks, we've got Double Tap, and it simply increases your weapon's fire rate. Don't ask me how drinking a root beer makes your MG42 fire faster, it just works. Obviously, being able to sling lead quicker into your undead foes is a great benefit, but it also comes with the downside of chewing through your ammo reserves just as fast. This wouldn't be so bad if the most powerful weapons weren't exclusive to the mystery box, but they are. So, buying Double Tap will usually end up hurting you more than helping, since you'll have to settle for a less powerful wall weapon to supplement the ammo you'll be going through. It's generally a good practice then to avoid it at all costs, and to avoid Quick Revive in solo. Still, the perks are an amazing addition to zombies as a whole, and I can't imagine where we'd be today without them. Much like the power switch, they give players more to strive for game after game, but also give them more things to spend points on other than the mystery box. Speaking of, our favorite slot machine has a new mechanic in the form of the teddy bear. I'd guess that Treyarch noticed how much players were hitting the box over and over again in Nacht, and so implemented a system where it could move from where it started after being bought so many times. The number isn't set in stone, but I imagine the chance to get the bear increases a little bit each time the box is used. Once it appears, the teddy bear will return the 950 points used to buy it and teleport the box elsewhere on the map. These are set spawns and can easily be identified by the debris they're made of. This system is genius, and, again, has returned in almost every map since its introduction. However, the issue with Verruckt's implementation is that it doesn't tell you where the box has moved to. You just have to run around the map until you find it. This isn't much of an issue nowadays, since many of us have memorized these spots, but it can definitely be frustrating to new players who are unfamiliar with the map. Thankfully, this will be addressed in the next map, but we'll get to that in a second. First, I want to mention a few smaller things that changed between Verruckt and Nacht. These are still significant, but don't warrant a ton of explanation. To start, the player characters can talk now. Alongside that, an announcer was added when power-ups are picked up.
Rotten bastard!
These two things bring a lot of personality to the map and liven it up just a bit. Don't get me wrong, the silent desolation of Nacht is brilliant, but I like this. You just feel a little more energy every time you get a power-up or your character says something invigorating. The next thing I'd like to mention is the fact that zombies can now reach through the boards and attack you if you're standing too close to a window. I can't say for certain, but I think this change was made to prevent players from infinitely farming points by constantly rebuilding barriers as the zombies tear them down. Personally, I'm not sure how to feel about this. On one hand, it's a necessary change to keep people from gaining too many points too quickly. On the other, it's annoying to be hit through the windows when you're just trying to, repair them. The final thing I'll mention here is the addition of buyable traps within the map. Fitting for a horrifying asylum, the traps introduced here are electric ones that zap anything that walks through them. They do infinite damage, which makes them an essential part to any serious high-round run, and a great way to save yourself when the zombies get to be overwhelming. Of course, they don't run forever and have a cooldown between uses, but they're still extremely useful despite that. You might wonder why I'm putting these in the honorable mentions category, and the simple answer is that I don't find myself using traps that often. They've been included on most maps since Verruckt, yes, but they're not as essential to me as perks or anything else I listed above. Still, they are an iconic part of this map, and they look really cool to boot. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that Verruckt gets overlooked. While many recognize all that it did for zombies as a whole, it tends to get overshadowed by more popular maps like Der Riese, Nacht der Untoten, and Mob of the Dead. That's for good reason, don't get me wrong, but I still love Verruckt for what it is. It was the first DLC map we ever got, and it gave us perks for God's sake. The tone and atmosphere is the peak of early zombies, to the point that future maps are often compared to Verruckt when discussing their lack of horror. It's this very essence that draws me to it and keeps me coming back. You know I'm a sucker for this setting, so I could be biased, but online conversation tells me that I'm not alone. So, although future maps would go on to surpass it, and it can be extremely difficult at times, Verruckt is, and probably always will be, my favorite zombie map of all time. But if I'm being honest, I'm getting sick of the tight corridors and 1940s German aesthetic. I want something more open, something a little more green. Finally, we've arrived at the unsung hero of the zombies mode. Shi No Numa is, by all accounts, the first real zombies map we've ever got. What I mean by that is, this map has it all. Easter eggs hinting at a bigger story, a hidden song that slaps, and a cast of lovable characters. Like Verruckt was to Nacht, Shi No Numa is to Verruckt. At the same time, it's a departure from the aesthetic we've grown used to in zombies. Rather than being set in Germany, we now find ourselves deep inside a Japanese swamp. Our safe, concrete walls have been traded for flimsy-looking straw and bamboo. In exchange, we are finally allowed to step outside for the first time. And I gotta say, this was a literal and metaphorical breath of fresh air, especially after the cramped corridors of Verruckt and hazy darkness of Nacht. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, let's get to what many consider the heart and soul of the mode, the crew we play as. Previously, we've fought the undead as a group of unnamed Marines who didn't even speak before Verruckt. And while I loved their lines in that map, there was a touch of actual character missing. So, Treyarch went ahead and created 4 all-new characters for us to play as. The American, Polanski, the Russian, Chernov, a random Japanese officer, and the German, Heinrich Amsel. Wait, no, that's not right. Ah, here we go. The American badass, Tank Dempsey. The drunk Soviet, Nikolai Belinsky. The honorable Japanese warrior, Takeo Masaki. And the crazy German scientist, Dr. Richthofen. These 4 overly stereotypical men would come to guide the zombies' storylines for years to come, and would make their way into our collective hearts along the way. Though, at the moment, they're nothing more than hyperbolic representations of their respective countries. Still, their dialogue can be absolutely perfect at times, and they are a marked improvement over the nameless Marines we had before. With defined characters, though, must come a defined storyline, or at least a hint of a storyline. See, Treyarch must have wanted players to uncover the story they were brewing on their own without much hand-holding in the form of Easter eggs. Some were placed more obviously, like this giant meteor outside of the storage hut or the number 115 written on the side of this box. Others were a bit more hidden though, like this scrap of paper which seems to read Die Glock der Riese, which translated from German, this seems to say the Bell of the Giants. At least that's what Google Translate says. I don't speak German, I'm sorry. My personal favorite non-musical Easter egg, though, is the radio message you can play in the spawn room.
R-4808 37 14 606 115 48 40.
I hope you're receiving this transmission. If you're not, then all is not been lost. You must know by now that we failed to contain giant must remain at all costs. Repeat, der Riese must remain safe at all costs. The DG2 experiments continue. Might be our only advantage now. Find Dr. Dr. Max. They may know what's going on. The use of 115 is dangerous at best. I'm not sure we can continue here. We've lost most of our best. I hope you get this. I hope it hasn't happened there too. But I'm almost out of hope.
We gotta be faster than that, maggot sack!
06.96. 101. 55. 44.94.
This radio hints at many things, with one of the most significant of them being the mention of a failure to contain the asylum. This obviously references Verruckt and confirms that that map was connected to the larger storyline. However, 3 more things are mentioned in this radio that carry much more weight. The first is a place referred to as the Giant and der Riese. That should sound familiar considering it's the name of the next map to be released, but it was also mentioned on the note I talked about before. Second is the name Dr. Richthofen, though it is sort of concealed with static. The message claims that he and another man named Dr. Maxis should know what's going on. Interesting, considering Dr. Richthofen is one of the playable characters. Anyway, the last thing is Element 115. Though its true significance isn't fully understood yet, we know its importance from the fact it's been brought up twice in this map. Though this radio is very vague in its message, it led to tons of speculation and theorizing within the community at the time. What is der Riese? Who are Richthofen and Maxis? What do they know that we don't? How is Element 115 involved? All questions that would be answered in the next map, but for now, the community is left guessing. Another thing mentioned in the radio message is a series of experiments labeled DG2, implying that these experiments are continuing elsewhere, probably der Riese. This is significant because it relates to the new wonder weapon introduced in Shi No Numa, the WAW DG2. WAW, by the way, literally means miracle or wonder weapon in German, hence where the term comes from to describe these powerful guns. This brand new instrument of death fires out a bolt of lightning that hits and chains between zombies, meaning you can fire once and get up to 10 kills. It's immensely powerful and can certainly save you in a pinch. Add in the badass design this weapon has, and it's no wonder, pun intended, that this thing is a perfect partner to the ray gun. Despite everything I just said though, Shi No Numa's true claim to fame is the introduction of hellhounds.
Oh, those don't sound like freak bags.
These demon dogs come every 5 to 7 rounds and act as sort of mini bosses. They're much faster than zombies and can leap at you from farther away, but their attack animation often has them staying in one spot, so running away is a bit easier. Once you get 2 or 3 of them on you though, it can be pretty rough. But if you manage to survive the round, you're awarded with a max ammo, thus giving players a way to consistently earn them. This is huge, since it allows you to equip whatever weapons you like, rather than having to carry a wall weapon all the time due to ammo constraints. Obviously, 5 to 7 rounds of waiting can be enough to drain your ammo on higher rounds anyway, but knowing that the max ammo is coming certainly helps. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the random perks. There are no new perks in this map or der Riese, but what Shi No did was have their locations be randomized between runs. So, for example, if you buy your way from spawn to the fishing hut, the perk inside of the hut will be randomly chosen from those that haven't spawned yet. You might get Juggernog or you might get Double Tap. The only way to guarantee you get what you want is to open the entire map, which is a first for zombies. Though if you open the staircase instead of the gate at spawn,
I'm coming for you.
Anyway, I really like this system, but I'm glad it's never returned outside of remakes. It just added the tiniest bit of randomness to runs, which is neat, but I'd much rather know where perks are and be rewarded for building map knowledge. And that's all for Shi No Numa. All in all, it's a very solid map that is definitely worthy of praise for the things it did. I know I called it the first real zombies map, but those quotation marks are there for a reason. While, yes, Shi No established a lot of the story elements that Riese would resolve, it didn't have the level of secrets we'd come to expect from zombies. So maybe it'd be best to consider Shi No as a sort of beta map. It did give us our iconic crew and introduced hellhounds though, two integral pieces of zombies that we can't forget about. We can't forget about our crew of characters. Anyway, we're finally at the final map released for World at War, the culmination of everything Treyarch had been building towards in both gameplay and story. This is the first real zombies map, the one that would become the blueprint for every map to follow it. You know it, I know it, and we all love it. Of course, I'm talking about So, here we are, Riese. Truthfully, I'm not sure what to really say about this map that hasn't already been said. It defined what zombies was going to become by being the pinnacle of World at War's run with the mode. It gave us so much lore and backstory for not only the zombies and hellhounds, but also for the character of Richthofen and his involvement with their creation. It gave us the Pack-a-Punch and Monkey Bombs, both of which are still in zombies today. The first multi-step setup and Easter egger on this map, for God's sakes. Most important of all, though, is the introduction of the greatest power-up of all time, the Carpenter. Just kidding. Seriously though, Riese is responsible for many key aspects of zombies and solidifying the formula of the mode. So, let's dive into the new things it brought to the table, starting with the most important of them all, the Pack-a-Punch.
Reach for Juggernog tonight. Yeah, I can totally, get into that chick.
This nifty little machine is the first to ever give players a direct way to upgrade their weapons, while making them look super stylish and giving them sick names like the Reaper, the Afterburner, and the Penetrator? God damn. Of course that had to be the name for the PTRS. For the low price of 5,000 points, you can take any weapon to this magical machine and have its damage and magazine size increased. At the same time, it would refill your ammo completely, so it's a common strategy to wait and upgrade your gun after it's low or out of bullets. If the weapon you upgraded is a wall buy, however, you can still buy more ammo for it for 4,500 points wherever it spawns. But, with the addition of dog rounds from Shi No, it's kind of pointless to do this unless you're desperate. Shout out to the STG though for keeping me in the fight after a down. Having that thing right next to the godlike catwalk always helped you re-up after you died. Regardless, the Pack-a-Punch was destined to become a permanent fixture in zombies by its very nature. It's basically a perk machine for your guns, especially in later maps. But it wasn't just the machine itself that was important. It was the small quest you have to go on to unlock it. From the start of the match, you get to see it from behind a thick metal door, almost like it's taunting you. Throughout the map, there are 3 teleporters that need to be reconnected to the mainframe in the spawn room. Not only will this activate it for use later, but each one you connect will open the Pack-a-Punch door just a little bit. Once all 3 are connected, you're able to reach the machine and upgrade your weapons. This is the first setup quest in any zombies map, unless you count the power switch from Verruckt. I don't, because that's too simple. You literally just buy doors and reach the switch, there's not much thought to it. Meanwhile, the Pack-a-Punch requires just a touch more strategy and thought to pull off. You might have to plan your route from teleporter to spawn, or have a teammate waiting at spawn to finish the connection right away. Either way, there's more planning that has to go into opening the pack, and honestly, I think it's perfect. In preparation for this video, I had a friend of mine come over to play with me while I took my notes. This friend isn't very familiar with zombies and its convention, so it was interesting to see his reactions to each map and how they played. We went through each one in order, so when we got to Riese, he was quite familiar with the basics. Once we turned the power on, I explained to him what we needed to do next, and he was admittedly a bit confused at first. But after just one teleporter, he knew what was up. We quickly linked up the other two and had ourselves packed ray guns and LMGs in no time. It was at this moment I realized just how easy the setup of Der Riese is to grasp, and how that simplicity is its greatest strength. Almost anybody can pick it up and understand what they need to do with a short YouTube tutorial or a friend who can guide them. Naturally, this sort of setup has gotten more complex and involved as time has gone on. It's a pretty big debate in the community. Some prefer the longer, more complex setups of, say, Shadows of Evil, whereas some prefer the simpler, shorter setups of Der Riese or Ascension. Without going too far off topic, I will say that I tend to prefer the simpler ones, but there are times where I'm down for something a bit more involved. Both are important for the health and accessibility of the mode, so I really can't say one should prevail over the other. Back to Der Riese though. I want to touch on the Easter eggs and the stories they tell. Throughout the entire map, there are small radios tucked into dark corners and crevices. If you interact with these radios, you'll get snippets of audio relating to experiments that were conducted at this facility before its fall. We learn of Dr. Mactus, his assistant/partner Edward, and his daughter Samantha. During their time at the facility, Maxis and Edward test the teleporters, the effects of Element 115 on corpses, and create the Wonder WAW. In the radios, we hear some of these tests play out as Maxis tries to control the zombies and get the teleporters to function. At one point, we hear an exchange between Maxis and his daughter as he presents her with a dog she would later name Fluffy. Fluffy, as it turns out, is pregnant, and Samantha is eager to keep the puppies too. Meanwhile, the tests with the teleporters are going not too well.
Initiating test number 3. Subject is within the test chamber. Activate power.
Oh my god.
Do you hold yourself and clean that up? Test number 3. Unsuccessful. Test subject has been reduced to the same state as previous subjects. Clean up the test chamber and recalibrate the system. Let's do it again.
Yes, Doctor.
With the next radio, things begin to slowly take shape.
Edward, tie the damn thing down! We can't have it running around during the test!
It's tied down now, Dr. Maxis.
Initiating test number 5. Subject is within the test chamber. Activate power.
Searching for vitals. No reading, Doctor. The subject has disappeared. Dr. Maxis, we've done it!
Don't be foolish! Test number 5 is unsuccessful. Subject has vanished, yes, but has not reappeared at the mainframe. Recalibrate the damn system, now!
Well, I don't think Maxis will be winning any Father of the Year awards. If you had your doubts about him being a good person, that should have confirmed them. But it's the next and final radio that has all the pieces falling into place.
Initiating test number 6. Subject is within test chamber. Activate power. Damn it, Edward! Did you set up the device correctly?
Yes, Doctor. As per your specifications.
If you had done it to my specifications, then it would have worked, wouldn't it? As usual, your incompetence has...
What? Do you hear that, Doctor?
Quiet, you fool! Test number 6 is a failure, but the experiment has caused some kind of electrical force energized within the chamber. Well, open the door!
Doctor, I don't think...
Open the door, now!
Daddy, what are you doing with Fluffy?
Damn it, Samantha, I told you never to come in here. Edward, get her out of here.
Yes, Doctor.
What's wrong with her? Daddy, what did you do? Fluffy!
Come back here, Samantha! Stop her! Easy. Come here, Samantha. Good girl, Flossie. Gently, Samantha. That's not Flossie anymore. We must get out of here. What? Edward, what are you doing? Open the door! Edward, open this door now! got to! Stay by me, Samantha! Goodbye, Dr. Maxis.
Now, when this story was revealed, many began to wonder just who Edward was. However, since we all know who he is nowadays, I'll spare you the explanation. Still, the revelation that Richthofen was part of the group that created not only the zombies, but the Hellhounds as well, was mind-blowing back in the day. It really planted the seeds of distrust that would blossom in the Black Ops games, since we had absolutely no clue what this crazy German scientist was going to do next, or what his ultimate goal was. Though it may seem like child's play compared to the story we've got today, I can't express just how potent this tale was back in the day. It's worth noting, too, that nobody knew if zombies was going to continue after World at War. After all, the entire story thus far had been told and wrapped up neatly, barring a few unanswered questions. The mode could have easily ended right there, and we all would have been left wondering what could have been. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, and the mode is still going strong to this day. Outside of the radios, though, is another Easter egg that is ultimately pointless, but will award you with an achievement for doing it. Of course, I'm talking about the fly trap. This small quest is very easy to begin, since you only need a pack-a-punch weapon to start it. You take your gun over to this window and fire a shot at the panel far off in the background. Once you hit it, this happens.
I want to play a game. Let's play hide and seek.
The next step is to play the game of hide and seek. There are 3 different things you must find: 2 teddy bears and 1 monkey bomb somewhere on the map. Once you find the final one, you get this line of dialogue.
Oh, you found another one.
Also, as a side note, this monkey bomb in the furnace is a hint at another Easter egg. Creepy as shit if you ask me, but ultimately not part of the fly trap. That Easter egg ends when you find the final item. Overall, the fly trap doesn't award anything other than an achievement when you first do it. However, it is a sign of things to come with future maps, and shows that the community likes finding and completing these sorts of things. Hell, I'm sure most of you have been around when a new zombies map drops and the community goes crazy for a bit trying to figure it out. Even if most maps are totally solved within days or even hours, it's still a pretty electric time. As for how the map plays, I'd say it's a perfect blend of Shi No Numa and Verruckt. You've got wider outdoor areas reminiscent of Shi No that are connected by indoor hallways similar to Verruckt. Both camping and training strats are viable, though if you ask most people, I'd bet they'd all have at least one good story from the infamous catwalk. I brought this spot up earlier, and that's for good reason. The catwalk is far and away the best and easiest camping spot in all of zombies. Literally, all you need is a couple of upgraded guns, perks, and bouncing betties to succeed. Add in 1 to 3 other players who are also stacked beyond belief, and you can theoretically go forever if the max ammos are timed right. I remember spending hours upon hours just running games of zombies with an online buddy of mine where we'd get geared up and camp on the catwalk. One of us would crouch in front of the other to shoot over his head, and we'd even stagger out our reloads so that one of us was always firing. It's the very same strat I had my buddy and I do recently, and it was just as fun. I can't quite explain why it was so much fun, just that it is. The feeling of power you get from mowing down hordes of undead with a friend by your side while you're both coordinating is just exhilarating. Which is why I always opt for the catwalk strat whenever I play Riese. It's the most optimal and the most fun. Before I wrap up this section on Riese though, I need to explain the monkey bombs. Simply put, these things are just awesome. I mean, they're literally just simple monkeys with dynamite strapped to their backs. You throw them like any other grenade, but rather than just explode, these cute little guys bounce and play a little song that attracts zombies to them. After a short amount of time, once a nice group has gathered around it, the monkey will finish its song and dance before exploding. This makes the monkey bombs the perfect get-out-of-jail-free card when you're being overwhelmed or need to revive a downed teammate. Add in their undeniable charm, and it's easy to see why these little guys have appeared in almost every map since. But that's all I really have to say about Der Riese. It's a truly magnificent map in every single way. It's got progression, Easter eggs, characters, atmosphere, and mystery all wrapped into one dark, bloody map. There's a reason it's been remastered multiple times and why so many people hold it in such high regard. It's got everything you expect from a zombies map in an easy-to-understand form. There are no complex setups or secret quests to do for power. It's just you, your gun, and maybe a few friends against the world. It's a perfect blend of complexity and simplicity that keeps us all coming back over 14 years later. Call of Duty World at War's Zombies mode is a unique thing in gaming. Very rarely do we see so much innovation and evolution in such a short amount of time. It reminds me of the original Halo trilogy in many ways, how Halo 2 built off of CE and 3 built off of 2 to create the pinnacle of the franchise. The same thing happened in World at War, just with successive maps, and I am so grateful that I got to experience it in real time and watch its growth all the way from Nacht to Modern Warfare zombies. It's this growth and passion that helped elevate zombies to its status as the definitive third mode for Call of Duty. Over the years, things have expanded exponentially to the point where you almost need a PhD to understand what's going on, and I like that aspect a lot. However, there's something nice about going back to the basics, to when the biggest question of the story was where the zombies came from. There's something intangibly magical about those times, before everything was explained. It really allowed for more discussion and different interpretations, something that is sorely missing today, where damn near everything can be figured out if you know where to look. Obviously, by the time of Der Riese, plenty had been explained with 115 in the experiments, but it was still a background thing that didn't affect gameplay. Really, it only influenced map or art design. Again, I'm not ragging on the current state of the mode, but I do think this reliance on explaining everything is an issue. Thankfully, one thing that lacks almost any explanation is the music Easter eggs. I'm not sure who came up with the idea for these, but that person deserves some kind of award. This sort of thing is entirely unnecessary, but I am so happy they went ahead with it anyway. Songs like The One and Beauty of Annihilation will forever be anthems to my zombie slaying on their respective maps because they are certified bangers. Lullaby of a Dead Man is good too, but it just can't match the energy of the other two. Alina Sigmund, I think I'm saying that right, and Kevin Sherwood absolutely killed it, and will continue to do so in Black Ops 1. But we'll get to that in the next part of this series. To close out this video, I want to say something that might be controversial, or at least have some of you raising your eyebrows. World at War's Zombies is my favorite. Now, I'm fully aware of the masterpieces that follow it, but I still find myself coming back to this game more than any other. There are some things that are better and some that are worse when comparisons are made, but the pure nostalgia I feel for this game just overpowers everything. World at War was the first COD I played online, the first campaign I beat, and the first time a game scared me so bad I had nightmares about it. It brought me and my friends together in a way that no other game had, and zombies was at the core of all of it. In multiplayer, some were better than others, but in zombies, we were all equally skilled, and could equally contribute to the team. We all wondered about where the story was going, what lurked just outside of the maps, or how we could survive longer next time. And each map available to us gave us something different to do. If we were serious and wanted to go as far as possible, we played Der Riese. If we wanted to challenge ourselves with the bare minimum, we played Nacht or Verruckt. And if we wanted a bit of randomness to shake everything up, we played Shi No Numa. World at War Zombies is a complete package, and I don't think you could go wrong with buying it and all of the DLC for it, though the DLC should be free by now. What the fuck, Activision? But, what do you think about World at War Zombies? Have you played it? Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, I'm gonna head out of here. Make sure you take good care of yourself, get plenty of rest, drink lots of water, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!